How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Wolf, and welcome to what I honestly think is my best Ultimatum build by far out of pretty much everything I have in my path of building so far. This is my Vortex Occultist. This is not going to be my League starter because I have something specific that I want to play, which is some form of Speed Magic Find Ranger, which I don't think will be entirely optimal for the League. But my recommendation, as always, is to just play what you want, really. If something's more optimal, then it doesn't really make a difference. Just play whatever you feel like playing. But I know some people do enjoy looking for builds or playing very specific, unique, and like powerful stuff, and this is going to be one of those. This was a character I played a long time ago. What was it? I think Synthesis League or Delirium League, one of the two. I played this character. I never got it till like full on endgame. I don't have any gameplay or anything like that for you, but essentially the way it plays is it utilizes Vortex, which normally this is comboed with Frostbolt, and whenever you'd use a Frostbolt, you press your Vortex and it would shit out like an AoE thing underneath it, or underneath your Frostbolt. Now, the thing is you don't need to use Frostbolt to make Vortex viable, because it is good entirely on its own. It does a shit ton of damage over time just passively. You add in a bunch of dot damage increases, and it will start to do some very, very insane damage. Now, why is this really good for Ultimatum? Well, it puts out one big, consistent damaging circle. So, if you scale up the AoE to take up the whole circle, then all you have to do is press your Vortex and everything will automatically die passively. And from there, you just focus on staying alive. So, this setup is set up for as much damage as possible. However, there are tweaks and changes you can do to optimize it for more AoE or for more survivability, that sort of stuff. So in this case, with the Vortex setup, you can put in an area of effect in here. You can take more AoE from the skill tree, right? There's AoE in a bunch of different places on here. You can get staffs with AoE, weapons with AoE, all that sorts of stuff. Now, most of my characters are built for solo self-found, so I think this would still be good in Ultimatum SSF, but if you were playing in Trade League, then, well, fucking go nuts. You can get AoE on pretty much everything. You can get Shaper items, Elder items, affixed items with, or influenced items, sorry, with bonus AoE on it pretty much everywhere. And just go ape shit until you can basically encompass the whole circle for Ultimatum, and just make sure you keep a Vortex up 24/7 and everything will pretty much melt. So with that being said, let's talk about the skill tree, shall we? So to start, we get as much spell damage as possible. Grab a bit of extra cold damage here when we start using Vortex. Grab Elemental Overload, and then we also grab the damage and AoE over here, plus the resistances and damage and spell damage here. Then we want to grab a Zealot's Oath because we're going to be going Life Regeneration. You can get this later on in the tree if you want. Then we've got some increased max energy shield and reduced cost of skills while on full energy shield, plus some max mana as well. And then from there we get more ES. Then we come over here, we grab all the ES here. You could cut through here if you wanted to. I think this is just the better option. AoE, yeah, more AoE there. Then we get more energy shield and mana into energy shield. So that means that mana rolls on gear are not entirely bad. Then we get more ES. Then we come over here and we can go for the jewel socket, or we can go for basically anything down here. You can go for leadership to get boosted auras and reduced reserve, depending. You can get, what else is there? Elemental damage right here as well. This is going to be a nice damage bonus for you. Alternatively, you can cut those points and go pretty much wherever else you want to. Then we've got increased damage over time here. We've got energy shield here. Chaos inoculation, large cluster jewel if you want anything like that. I was messing around with those sorts of things during this time. Energy shield and some more cold damage over here. Then we go into the Ascendancy. We are going to be picking Occultist, and we're going with Malediction for an additional curse. Profane Bloom to make these cursed targets explode, which is very good for a limited area because the explosions will overlap and do a shit ton of damage. Then we have Void Beacon, which is nearby enemies have minus cold resistance. Nearby enemies will consist of pretty much anything in the circle, I would presume. And then Vile Bastion is required to make it so you can't be stun chained to death while playing an energy shield character. So skill tree, Pretty simple, all in all. You have 10 points free in this setup. You can go for damage. You can go for more ES if you wanted to, if you need more survivability. You can adapt it whichever way you want, or whichever way you need. You could also go for Abyss Jewels. You can go for Cluster Jewel stuff. I saved a few points, I believe, for added Cluster Jewel stuff. Damage over time, like dot damage stuff in the Cluster Jewel would probably be the way to go. Then we're going to go into the items. These are pretty simple, just some wands with cold damage and cold damage over time multiplier. You can farm, I believe it's frigid fossils for these, which would give you a very high chance of rolling cold over time multi and percent cold. All you really need to do is just spam roll a wand with frigid fossils until you get cold over time multi, and then you can craft on increased spell damage. Generally, you can get a high spell damage roll from betrayal, that sort of stuff, and you make 2 of those wands and you are good to go. Obviously, I duplicated it for Path of Buildings purposes, but anything with that sort of setup will be fine. Also, max mana on the wand is not a bad thing because max mana converts to energy shield at a very small ratio. Then the rest of the gear is ES with resistances pretty much everywhere. 6-link ES with resistances. You will also be able to use a corrupted chess piece. If you haven't seen my video on getting corrupted 6 links early in a league, I would recommend looking at it. Should still work just fine. So use whatever chess piece you can get and just roll with that. Fingerless silk gloves is going to take you a little bit to get in solo self-found. In trade league, just fucking buy them. They're just spell damage. Then boots, we want ES with fire res and just res across the board. Obviously, you want movement speed on these as well. Forgot that for whatever reason. Onyx Amulet for stat requirements. You can add more stats basically wherever. You'll come across more stat lines pretty much wherever you... on random pieces of gear, you're not going to get, life tri-res on every single piece. You'll have, like, strength on one piece somewhere. That's what I generally find. Then the necklace is pretty much god roll. You can manage any of these rolls. You're in a good spot. This is plus attributes, Onyx Amulet, with some main stat, and then spell damage, cold damage, ES, and increased max ES. You manage like a spell damage, cold damage combo. You've hit gold basically for this build. Max energy shield, or just an energy shield amulet in general is good. And then moonstones with plus max energy shield. From here you can put on whatever. If you find you need more resists because the rest of your gear rolled like ass, put them here. If you find you need more stats, put them here. You need more damage, get spell damage or cold damage or what have you, put them there. Belt, we're going to go a max energy shield belt with extra max ES. You could do an abyssal jewel here as well if you want to. That is your choice entirely. And then from here you can use whatever flasks you want. You guys generally know my preferred flask setup, which is like anti-freeze, anti-bleed, anti-curse, and then 2 quicksilvers. Use your flasks however you feel like. Each person is different. And then we've got the Vortex setup. This is going to be optimized for DPS, which is Vortex, Elemental Focus, Efficacy, Controlled Destruction, Swift Affliction, and Hypothermia. Now, what I'd recommend doing is going through all of these and doing the math on like which one's the... Wait, I have to do the math. Which one's the lowest damage? So that'd be Hypothermia. So if you want AoE for Ultimatum, you take off Hypothermia and you put in AoE, which then also makes getting the coloring very easy because you need to get 5-1 on a corrupted chess piece, which is pretty easy to do if you farm for like an hour or 2. So you manage that, you get a 5-1 chess piece with a shit ton of AoE, and you are off to the races pretty much. From there, we're going to be using a Blasphemy, LA Weakness, and Frostbite. This will be on pretty much 24/7, and this is going to be exceptional as well for Ultimatum, because it's one big circle. You could put AoE in here if you want, but you might run into some mana problems depending. You can also slot this in the wand as it's only 3 links. But yeah, you can put AoE on this to line it up with the Vortex if you want to go that way. Righteous Fire is going to give you a nice spell damage bonus. Kind of a cheat. Just pop it and you'll shit on everything. Simple enough. It shouldn't kill you either because it takes from Energy Shield, but it will take a decent amount of ES, so be careful with that. Summon Stone Golem is going to give you life regen, converted to ES regen through Zealot's Oath, which is just passive regen, which is very, very nice. Flame Dash, Arcane Surge is nice for mana regeneration and spell damage, so you'll have that pretty much 24/7. A level 7-ish Arcane Surge is generally the best setup. You can go a little bit lower if you want, but you lose some spell damage. And then from here, you've got a setup for your auras, running an Enlighten in here. Alternatively, you can do some switching around and get rid of the blasphemy, and you get rid of this and you put all of the curses onto Frostbomb instead. So you go for a Frost Bomb with Hex Touch, which will apply your curses. Then you use Frostbite, AoE Weakness, and a Bone Chill. And from here, I mean, you can probably cut the Bone Chill because you only have a 4-link, more than likely. But using this setup, you can then use auras instead of using curses with Blasphemy, right? So we free up all of this reduced reserve, and we still get all the curse bonus from this setup instead. So you end up getting Malevolence, Zealotry, and using an Enlighten in there so you can get even more mana as a result from that. So that's 2 different setups. I would recommend just staying with the Blasphemy setup since we're planning this around doing AoE and AoE speed clearing. This is going to be the preferred way to do things. And then you have a Steel Skin, self-cast, and then a cast when damage taken Steel Skin as well. You can use these if you want. You can use your own sort of defensive layering however you want. This is my preferred setup. This will automatically go off as like an oh shit button. This is a manual press version of it. This is just in case you get hit by something that's too stupid that you don't see coming, like on death effect or something. It'll proc. As you can see, big slam coming, you press it yourself manually. Or just use this one and pray when you see a big hit coming. Both options are entirely viable depending on your outlooks on the church. Alright, with that being said, that is pretty much the character. I talked about gearing and whatnot. You can get damage over time, Abyssal Jewels as well. Those would be pretty decent for the build. This is planned for solo self-found as well, so there's a bunch of damage over time uniques and what have you that you could use, or AoE uniques, or there's a Wise Oak you could get if you get like extra cold res. I think this is set up for a Wise Oak, so you can get damage increase in there. There's what's the one curse called? The flask that like you puts out despair or something on hit. I don't know. I don't think that actually works. Does this have an on hit? I think it does. I'm pretty sure Vortex has an on hit component to it. Yeah, it does. So Vortex will proc AoE overload in case you're curious with that. Because I know some people are like, oh, it's all dot damage. Dot damage doesn't have a proc coefficient. Yeah, well, Vortex does on its own. So yeah, eat a dick, nerd. Yeah. But that is going to pretty much be the character. I have played this before. It worked exceptionally well. It speed cleared pretty much everything. I was just very bored of Path of Exile at the time I was playing this character, so I never got it to endgame. I would highly, highly recommend it for Ultimatum League. However, add some AoE and just drop vortexes and watch the whole circle disappear, basically. So yeah. Thank you guys very much for watching. Do let me know if you're going to try this character, and if you do try it, come back and let me know how it went. Because I am generally curious about these sorts of things. People have told me that certain builds are massive hits and certain builds are massive misses. But for the most part, reception has been pretty good. So do let me know your results if you decide to play it. Otherwise, let me know what your league's starting so far. It's going to be all from me, and as always, take care, gentlemen.